When most of us think of shoplifting, we think of people walking into a physical store, shoving a ham under their skirt, and walking out the door, or changing clothes in the dressing room and then tearing off the tags and walking out. We don't often think of stealing as somebody stealing our time. But if you're a service provider, you know this is a really big problem. And it happens in a couple of ways. So today I'm going to talk about how to identify it, how to stop it, and a really creative way to get clients to see what they're doing is wrong. So welcome to my channel where we talk about business, entrepreneurship, systems, and all the things that you need to know to be a successful entrepreneur and really enjoy your life. I'm Kelly Azevedo, and we're going to talk about how you can stop clients from stealing your time and services. I'll start by saying that most clients aren't bad people who are out to get you. They might be misguided or confused, but most of the times they're making innocent requests, and it's your job as a service provider to hold boundaries. So the first place things can go wrong is if clients ask you to do something which is outside of the scope you've agreed to. Let's say, for example, you have agreed to build someone a new website, and now they also expect you to write all the copy on their website. Those are two very different skills, and even if you have both skills, they may not have paid you to do both. So where service providers can go wrong is that they don't have a clear contract. They haven't spelled out what's included and, importantly, what's excluded. Because imagine you say things to your leads like, hey, I'll do whatever it takes to get your website up, or I'll make sure everything gets done. For them, everything is not coding and design. Everything is photography and copy and links, and all of a sudden you now have a bigger project than you bid on. So if a client does ask you to do something that's outside of your contract, your very first point of rebuttal is to say, I would be happy to help you with that. Here's how we could add it into your contract. Or unfortunately, I'm not equipped to help you do that, and it's not in the contract. You want to be clear that you're not turning down this work just because you don't feel like it, but because perhaps you're not equipped. This has happened to me so many times when a client says, oh, Kelly, you can go build that sales page, right? And I have to show them the sales pages I have built in my past to prove to them this is not my skill. And of course, now it's just very common in my contracts to specify that I don't do website design, coding, page building, etc. Now, the second way that clients steal time is a little bit more sneaky, and that's they're asking for more things than you can do in your contract's limits. So sometimes you do have a scope of services, but the client has agreed to or paid for 10, 20, 40 hours, and now they're asking you to do things which are going to take much longer. And even if they take 15 minutes beyond what you've agreed to, them taking more time is stealing your time. But again, you have to take personal responsibility here. Most clients, especially if they're good people and they trust you, are not looking over your shoulder digitally and seeing how you spend every minute. So they probably don't know how much time you've spent in your contract. They don't know that something they're asking for is not a simple task and it could take 20 hours and they only paid for 8. So this again is an issue of communication. And you can say to those clients, that is within the scope, I'd be happy to do it, and here's where we stand on hours. And then you give them their options. Because if you're doing good work and they need some more done, most clients would be happy to pay you for another block of hours, especially if that time is available. But what you don't want to do is say, yeah, I'll do it, and then you don't do it. Because then you become the one that feels and looks irresponsible, and you've essentially lied to them and they thought it was all okay. So if you're not going to your clients and saying, hey, here's where we stand on hours, then you can't blame them for assuming you have time to do the things they're giving you to do. So a trick here is that you don't want to just say, hey, we're done with our hours, however long has passed. You want to check in more regularly. So if you have a client on, let's say, a 10-hour package, they don't need you every week, but then they have projects that come up, you could check in with them weekly or every other week and just say, hey, we've used 4 hours, FYI. Hey, we're up to 9 hours used, FYI. And then when they come back with projects that go beyond the hours you have left, you can say, I'd love to do that. I estimate it's going to take this many hours. Here's how much you have left. Would you like to add on that time so I can do this project? And now you're not like allowing them to steal your time. What really blurs the line here, and there's some nuance, is that is it theft if you let it happen? Is it theft if you're giving your time away? Well, yes and no, because they're taking time that they haven't paid for, but you aren't reinforcing that boundary. Now, the third way that people often get their time stolen is a tricky one, because as a contractor, as someone who's self-employed or working on a one-off basis, you get to set your own schedule. So let's say you've decided that this Wednesday, you're gonna take the whole day off, you're gonna go shopping, you're gonna get to that dentist appointment you've been putting off, and you've got all these things planned. And then your client schedules a meeting on Wednesday, or they send you a job that has to be done by Wednesday, must have. Let's say that you're taking vacation and you keep getting emails and pings and Slack notifications, and you start to get annoyed. They're stealing my personal time. Maybe they're stealing my time from my other clients. I'm on site with a client trying to get this project done, and you keep needing me. Again, the nuance here is kind of fun because it's easy to say it's all the client's fault or it's all your fault, but it's actually somewhere in the middle, because you have to communicate those boundaries. You have to say to people, I'm going to be off on Wednesday, and so anything that needs to be done before Wednesday, I need assigned by the previous Friday. Or, hey, I'm out of town next week and I'm not accessible for work. If anything urgent comes up, I'll be back on this date. You have to be the one to set those boundaries, mostly because your client isn't somebody, at least in digital spaces, that can walk over to your desk and check in. They don't see your calendar. They don't know that you had a date tonight and you really didn't want to update their website. They don't know. So it's your job to tell them and then to hold that boundary. To say, got the task, it's not feasible to get done by Wednesday because, as I've mentioned, I'm out this Wednesday. I'll have it to you by Thursday. Or, hey, please note that while I'm getting your emails about this project, I'm still out of office for the next 3 days. And when you reinforce that boundary, you actually take back your time. But you could also make more money, right? If you follow these rules, then you could get more money for the work you're doing, sometimes for free. You'll get more respect and you'll be seen as a clear communicator who has boundaries and tells you what they need to be successful. And even if you don't make more money because clients don't end up paying you, you've gotten your time back. And besides the whole time is money BS, when you have that time to do whatever you want with it, work with other clients, do something in your personal life, or just have space to rest so you have the energy, then you can do more things that you want to do. I mean, I am pretty damn sure that you have a project in your business or personal life that you've been putting off because you don't have time or energy to complete it. You're tired at the end of the day, you're exhausted by all this work, and you just can't tackle what you want to do when you're working, and sometimes working for free. So I'm going to tell you exactly how I solved this problem with a client. This came to me in the moment. I did not plan it, but I was working with a client who started asking me to not just set up their funnel in their software of all the emails they want to go out, but to actually strategize and write those emails, which wasn't in our contract. And here's how it went. I said to the client, you know, last weekend I decided I wanted some cupcakes. So I went to my local grocery store and they have this really fancy bakery. And I went over and they did have like a dozen cupcakes. They were beautiful. They were all frosted and professionally done. They just looked amazing. But they're a little bit more than I wanted to spend on cupcakes. So I decided I'm going to DIY this. DIY this with a little help. So I went to the aisle and all the baking supplies, and I got a box of chocolate cake mix, and they'll make cupcakes. And I went and I checked out, and I paid the $2. And as I was walking out of the grocery store, I looked at the back of the box and I realized, oh, I need eggs, I need olive oil, I need water, I have that home. I'm gonna need a pan, like a muffin tin pan. If it's not gonna stick horribly, I'm gonna need liners, cupcake liners. And then if I want them to look like the ones in the bakery, I definitely need frosting. And I definitely want like some food dye and some sprinkles. So I went and gathered all that stuff. And then as I was leaving the grocery store, the manager stopped me and was like, ma'am. And I'm like, first of all, do not call me ma'am. I am under 50 years old. Go, okay, well, listen, you have to pay for this. And I said, yeah, I did. And I gave him the receipt and I said, I bought the cake mix. And they like gestured everything else in my arms and they're like, but all this other stuff you have to pay for. I said, no, I paid for the cake mix. It goes with the cake mix. And we argued back and forth and I was like, listen, why would you show me in your display case in the bakery what these cupcakes look like if you didn't want me to have these cupcakes? Like, you don't want me to be happy? And at this point in telling this story, my client is looking at me, I think at the time on Skype, like I'm insane. And so I said, I just want to reassure you, I did not go steal from the grocery store this weekend. But I wanted to illustrate that you've hired me to build your funnel, which is the cake mix. Strategizing and writing the emails is like the sprinkles and the frosting. They do go together, but it's not something that you've paid for. I can do that for you in this case, but it would be above and beyond the contract. We'd have to go through checkout again. So if you like, I can send you a quote or an invoice for what that work would look like. And I'm totally happy to do it. And here's the timeline. But if I give it to you, it would just be like me shoplifting sprinkles from the grocery store. And my client immediately got it because I was able to take them out of their individual scenario where they're thinking, well, you're putting the emails in, you can write the emails, why don't you want me to be happy? They go together. And they could see in another situation how they would be offended on behalf of that store owner that somebody was taking things without paying for them. Now, I've used this analogy many times over the years. It never fails to have my client be like, what is wrong with you? Oh, what's wrong with me? Okay, they get it really quickly. And there was only one time in my 12 years of business that I had to repeat the lesson. And all I had to say to this client was, I really wanted some cupcakes the other day. And they immediately remembered the story and said, right, why don't you give me a quote for what that would do? And we'll add that to your contract. And that felt empowering. That felt awesome that I wasn't just there to do whatever they felt like because they paid for one thing one time, but that I was being respected as a service provider and I was holding that boundary of this is what I'm worth, this is what I charge, and this is how you compensate me for the work I do for you. And that to me is the crux of stopping your clients from stealing from you in your service business, is that you have to stand up for yourself and your services and say, this is what I'm worth. So my challenge to you is twofold. One, if you don't have a clear contract with some of your clients, you need to create one. You can look at contracts that other people have sent to you. You can look at templates. You can hire a lawyer to write them for you. But get a contract put together. And then even people you've been working with long term, say, hey, I'm getting more organized. I want to make sure we have a clear contract about what work we're doing together. Let's sign this. That gives you that foundation to say, yes, that's included. No, that's not. Yes, I have time to do that. No, you need to give more time. And then the second part of your challenge is, now that we've talked about this, at some point, probably in the next week, you're going to get a request from a client. This could even be a request from a past client who wants you to do stuff for free, even though you've stopped working for them. Your job is to hold your boundary, say no with graciousness, maybe give them a cupcake story, and let them know how they can work with you. And if you do that and you're successful, I want you to come back and tell me in a comment what that meant. Was it an additional contract, more hours, more pay, clients backing down? Let me know. I want you to be successful in this. And that, in a nutshell, is how you stop clients from stealing your time in your service business. And it's as much to do about what you say as how you train your clients to behave. All right, if you like that video, click on the one below in which I give you some scripts for dealing with clients who are asking for things that are outside of their contract. It's a great companion piece to this video because I'm gonna help put the words in your mouth so you can confidently say no when somebody's on the phone or emailing you or messaging you to do more work for free.